It is wrong, absolutely wrong, for people to make comments that in any way celebrate, denigrate the murder of Charlie Kirk or anyone else. That doesn't mean it's not their constitutional right to say it.
Now, you might have a problem with this statement, but I suspect that Charlie Kirk is not even dead.
Okay. I mean, it's not that I have a problem with it. It's just that I'm just concerned for you. Let's switch gears here, because I've been talking about the Charlie Kirk stuff, but I want to talk about the reaction to Charlie Kirk. And it is almost astonishing to me to see how much many on the far right are now trying to go about canceling various people for saying things they don't like about Charlie Kirk. Now, let's be really clear. There's a difference between condemning what a high-profile person says about an event and some person who works at Delta who puts something up on social media that people don't like. And let's be clear. Most of the stuff people are getting in trouble for isn't stuff like Charlie Kirk deserved to die, right? I could see someone saying, I don't want that person working for me. It tends to be stuff like, why are people making such a big deal about it? And why is Charlie Kirk getting this when others didn't? And Charlie Kirk said very hateful things throughout his... Again, whether you agree or not, people should be able to say that. Same way, Don Jr. and Eric should be able to try to set, I wish they wouldn't do it, but the comments they make are literally throwing gas onto flames. And now there is an anonymous website called the Charlie Kirk Data Foundation, claims to have 60,000 submissions, expose Charlie's murderers. Hundreds of people, if not more, have been fired or suspended for social media activity, including federal workers, military members. This includes people who have disavowed violence, but criticized Kirk's worldview or simply posted his controversial quotes. Those are the most dangerous ones, right? Some localities and businesses targeted for not lowering their flags to half staff. Okay. Probably the worst of this is Pam Bondi threatening to prosecute an Office Depot employee for refusing to print flyers. Again, remember the whole case about the cake? Person who said it was their religious belief that they shouldn't have to make a cake for a gay wedding. And now it's, and we're not talking about scolding this person. She's talking about putting this person in jail. Have we lost our minds? Now, give Lindsey Graham credit. I think he's focusing on the right issues here. This is number 6. This is Lindsey Graham yesterday on NBC.
To the MAGA world, the right response is to do what Charlie did. Debate, organize, register voters, keep the movement alive through the political process. The bottom line here is that we all reject political violence. What happened to Mark's wife, Gabby, is just senseless. What happened in Minnesota is senseless.
Good for Lindsey Graham. But now the Free Press, right, which is this entity owned by Barry Weiss, which its whole mission is devoted to free speech. Its whole initial mission was ending cancel culture. But for some reason now they've got a debate, right? They got 2 people on one side and 2 people on the intellectual dishonesty. If you are going to base your entire business around ending cancel culture and then publish pieces today about how, this isn't cancel culture. Let me read you one of the pieces that they published. Matthew Continetti is publishing, and, they say this is the broad question that the Free Press asks. Are conservatives now engaging in cancel culture? We're debating that in our newsroom and in our pages today. They didn't used to debate it. And I used to agree with them, by the way, about the left's cancel culture. But that's what the right is doing now. This is the distinction that this person, Matthew Continetti, makes. Cancel culture, and this is apparently I didn't know that this was the definition of cancel culture. Cancel culture refers to a set of practices used in the digital era to enforce progressively coded norms and figures of speech. Who says that that's the definition of cancel culture? Progressive activists declared certain topics and viewpoints beyond debate and bullied individuals who thought otherwise into forced confessions and institutions into firings. Men and women were punished, their lives ruined for an errant remark, a simple mistake. Cancel culture was the mechanism for policing boundaries of the Great Awakening, a project of cultural revolution by which traditional understandings of sex merit and American exceptionalism were systematically and sometimes violently overturned. That is not what is happening today. Conservatives are not objecting to policy views. They're appalled by glorifications of violence. Goes on to say cancel culture silences and deplatforms men and women who dissent from progressive dogma. Defaming Charlie Kirk as a Nazi bitch is not engaging in debate. It's dehumanization. It's a license to kill. A license to kill. One of the few intellectually consistent people on topics like this, and someone who talks about cancel culture all the time, has been John Ziegler, conservative commentator, host of the Death of Journalism podcast. And I figured he's the perfect guest to talk to us about this. John, good to have you. What do you make of what's happening right now?
Dan, I am absolutely appalled by so much of what has happened over the last week. Obviously, we were all appalled by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. To give your listeners a little bit more context of what I think gives me some credibility here, is that the biggest topic of conversation in my family over the last 24 hours is whether or not I'm going to drive my 13-year-old daughter to Glendale, Arizona for the memorial service on Sunday because she was a huge fan of Charlie Kirk. So I'm a conservative. My daughter's a huge Charlie Kirk fan. I wrote a book called The Death of Free Speech in 2005, where I never imagined in 2025 we would be where we are today. And you are right to point out the hypocrisy of the right here. I was among those who were enraged by the cancel culture in the wake of the George Floyd and COVID panic situations, but this is just as bad. And I've been following this story of free speech punishment and experiencing in my own career for about 40 years. And I used to have this saying, it's not a big story until at least someone gets fired. I have never seen a story that comes close to this in the number of people who have been punished and fired for their thoughts, for their words. Now, some of them have been beyond appalling. Let's be clear about that. Some of the left-wing reaction to the Kirk assassination has been unbelievably horrendous and should be condemned. But you know who would have, as you have already implied, been in favor of publicly condemning them, but not punishing them, especially not by the government? Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's blood was all over a T-shirt that said freedom. His entire career was about defending freedom of speech. And you well know, Dan, that there's a big difference between cultural free speech and the First Amendment. But we have seen in the last few days how when you lose cultural free speech, it bleeds over into a lack of defense of the First Amendment. Pam Bondi's statements over the last couple of days have been appalling, coming out in favor of prosecuting the Home Depot and punishing and prosecuting what she calls hate speech. Hate speech is specifically protected under the First Amendment, as you well know, by the Supreme Court. We have the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, urging people to snitch on their neighbors, employers, if they don't like what they said about Charlie Kirk. I mean, this is bananas. And we are losing our freedom of speech as we speak. And I'll tell you one last thing before you can say whatever you want, Dan. But MAGA world is going to regret this because right now they have the power and they are drunk on the power that they didn't have during George Floyd and the COVID panic. But eventually they're going to lose that power and the left is going to come back even harder at them than they are doing now. And this is a never-ending cycle that will result in all of us losing one of our most precious rights, the right of free speech.
What do you make of this Free Press column that I read?
You know, I know Matthew Continenti. I've worked with him on stories before. He's a conservative. It's unbelievable to me, the amount of excuse making. And I'll tell you, Matthew is nowhere near as important as Elon Musk on this. Elon Musk literally buys Twitter to save free speech, right? The world's allegedly most wealthy person, biggest free speech defender, he has been searching desperately over the last 3 days, Dan, to try to come up with some excuse for why he is not condemning this, all because his side is the one doing the punishing now. And you got to be consistent here. The slippery slope is real, and there is no place in American life where the slippery slope is more dangerous than in free speech. Because as soon as you start getting subjective about what is acceptable and what isn't, and you start conflating what it means to celebrate Charlie Kirk's death, I mean, my God, that's a massive definition. Does that mean you smiled? Does that mean you didn't cry? What does that mean? Are you celebrated someone's death? It's inherently subjective, and when free speech enforcement becomes a subjective, we're done because of the slippery slope and who gets to decide what's acceptable and what is not.
Carla's in Arizona. Carla, how you doing? What do you got?
Yeah, hi, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. Two things. I think I agree 100% with what Dr. Ziegler is saying, except for in the cases where the employer feels that it conflicts with their company, as in the case of Home Depot, teachers of young kids who say they think murdering a person they disagree with is okay. I think there needs to be some line drawn for moral and ethical reasons by employers. I think that's their right. Other than that, I think that I think that it is somewhat hypocritical for the right. The other thing that I was going to comment on was I do think that it seems that you're going after Patel pretty hard. I think it's about the third day you've been going after him. The person that he said was the subject actually was shouting that he killed the guy. I killed the guy. I killed the guy. Go ahead and shoot me. Granted, he probably should have been a little bit less, enthusiastic about announcing it. But, overall,
So
who knows how
would you apologize like this for any FBI director, no matter who it was, who literally announces in the highest profile investigation of his term that they have the shooter in custody and it's the wrong guy? I mean, the idea that some nut job is yelling, "I shot him," and that leads Patel to say it is even worse than, that's even worse than if there was some investigation where there was some evidence. Oh my, we learned the DNA. Some nut job yelling and screaming and Patel's putting on social media. That's a guy who's fit to be the FBI director?
I can remember other cases where they jumped the gun, and it just seems like you're singling him out.
Name anyone that's remotely comparable to that, because from my memory, FBI directors are often too shut down. They don't say anything. They'll say once the suspect is arrested, they'll say, "We've got a suspect in custody," or "There's a person of interest that we're looking to talk to. We have the shooter in custody." I mean, this is also going to potentially hurt the case. It's not just like a media issue, right? And it's also about the fact that this guy goes to Utah before they capture him, which any senior person will tell you diverts resources from the agents who need to work there. And he's at Rayo's that night, supposedly the night the FBI is doing the hard work, right? The agents are working overtime. This guy's having dinner at a fancy restaurant, sending out tweets. Come on.
Yeah, Dan, I don't know why you're going after the guy like you are. I'm not clear about that.
What did I just said that's not true?
If you let me answer. The last FBI director made a lot of mistakes, including, going after Hillary and then not going after Hillary. I can remember other.
You're talking about Chris Wray? Wait. Are you talking about Republican Chris Wray? Are we talking about him?
No. I'm talking about the one before.
Because he's the last. Oh, he's the last FBI director. Okay.
Sorry, the one that went after Hillary. I'm not sure why you're going after him. I definitely don't think Trump will fire him. And maybe the guy isn't. Maybe
you want to know why I'm
going
after him? I'll tell you why I'm going after him. Because this is what I do. When people screw up, I'm going to call them out on it. When Comey screws up, I called him out on it. That's the difference between me and these other guys. I don't have an agenda. I'm not looking, I'm hoping I don't think Trump's going to fire him, but I'm still going to call it like I see it. All right. That's not going to change. But let me let John Ziegler respond to your earlier point about employers, and Carla saying that she thinks that, employers should be able to make hiring decisions, et cetera, based on what people say.
Glad you let me address that, Dan, because I fully support in concept the right of employers to do that. And I've been fired many times in my media career. I've always supported the right of the employer to do it. I disagreed with it, but that was their right. The Home Depot situation, I think, is an interesting example to look at. That person was fired not because of their speech, but because they refused to do their job. So that, to me, was a perfectly acceptable firing. What my great concern in this realm, Dan, is the rules need to be clear, and they are obviously not clear, and they are changing almost on an hourly basis in a way that is going to erode all of our free speech rights in the long run, because it bleeds over into the way even the Attorney General of the United States views things. And so people don't seem to be connecting this, what I call cultural free speech, with our First Amendment rights, and I think they're directly connected.
Carla, thank you very much for the conversation. Appreciate it. Let's go to Bob in California. Bob, how you doing? What's going on?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good, thanks. What do you got?
Well, I'm in complete agreement with Dr. Ziegler and you. The only thing that I really wanted to talk about is I'm also not the least bit surprised by this reaction. I mean, to an extent, this is what MAGA does. They take the things that they perceive the left has done, and they turn them on their heads, and they use them against them. And a lot of the MAGA supporters absolutely love it. And Trump is really good at it, and it's, I think, part of the reasons we're here. As I said, cannot agree more with the statements. We are in this time frame in my life, and I'm 67. Almost all my life, we've been center left, center right. That's not true anymore. We're hard left, hard right, and it is a little bit on the frightening side. This whole thing about cancel culture was bad enough. Now the right wing, you want to call that cancel culture, call it whatever you want. But going out, talking, telling on your neighbors, for God's sakes, that sounds like something either out of the Soviet Union or out of the 1950s House Un-American investigation. This is just absurd. It has to end. And I don't know how it's going to.
Let me ask Dr. Ziegler with his doctorate in, we'll call it a doctorate in free speech. All right. We've given him
for the promotion, Dan.
Exactly. We've granted you a doctorate in free speech. But what do you make about what Bob says about this is what MAGA does?
I think that the key to understanding why this is the case is that MAGA is not based in any sort of principles or ideas. It's a cult of personality. And that, you know, our founders always talked about being us being a nation of laws, not men. When you're a nation of men, or in this case, one man, Donald Trump, then nothing you believe in lasts from one day to the next. So you can be against cancel culture in 2020 and now be in favor of it in 2025 because you think it benefits you or it makes you feel good in the moment, even though you're giving up your rights in the long run.
Let's go to Brian in Pennsylvania. Brian, how you doing? What do you got?
One man, Donald Trump.
Hey, how you doing today? I'll try to make my point as quick as possible. I know you're getting to the end of the show, but I just want to say that nothing about this case makes any sense. And to only look to the authorities and to the mainstream media to get our information, well, that's going to get us nowhere. People are just getting more and more confused, more and more divided. And as I go ahead, I am so suspicious of this event. Now, you might have a problem with this statement, but I suspect that Charlie Kirk is not even dead.
Okay. I mean, it's not that I have a problem with it. It's just that I'm just concerned for you. I mean, I don't understand why you would, I'm sorry that you've become so distrustful of everything that you see and hear, such that the video of the guy having his neck blown off right after the incident isn't enough evidence for you that he's dead. It's just, I just think it's kind of sad.
I don't. I tend to look at facts and I don't look at nonsense. So let me just ask you a question.
Right, so just so I know then, what are the facts that are leading you to believe Charlie Kirk isn't dead?
Okay, well, on September 9th, a book was published for sale on Amazon entitled The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, a comprehensive account of the Utah Valley University attack, aftermath, and America's response by Anastasio J. Casey, the only book she's ever written. And as soon as people started to order
that book was AI generated.
Amazon pulled it. There was another book entitled The Charlie Kirk Shooting.
Brian, just so you know, that was an AI generated. I mean, this is again, man, you're down the rabbit hole here. I mean, I know you want to focus on facts, but you got to try to use as your prism at least remotely reliable sources. Again, John Ziegler, you want to weigh in here with Brian?
Dan, I love your response. It's better than anything else I could do, other than I think you just illustrated some of the dangers in the future regarding AI and people's inability to be able to discern fact from fiction.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Mark from Texas. Mark, how you doing? What do you got today?
Well, hopefully on the earth anyway. Look, I gotta say here, you have a right to free speech in this country, but you don't have a right to be free of repercussions. I'm with Milton and Brandeis on this. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and there's been a lot of I agree with you, or what you said earlier, Dan. People who just say, why Charlie Kirk? Why are you making all this about Charlie Kirk? That's different. But we know there's a lot of vitriol out there about this. It's just horrible. And if you put it out there, then you have to stand by it. And if people in the public specter, if your peers and your employers are going to call you out for what you say, that's fine. That's not an infringement of free speech. You have a right to say what you want, but you have to stand up for what you say and either back off of it or say, yeah, I said it. But, it's not infringing upon your free speech when someone calls you out for what you said.
No, but it is if the government starts taking action against you. You'd agree with that, right?
That's a huge if. The government has not taken action. What we're talking about is people getting fired and cancel culture, which I hate on both sides. And to say it's hypocritical on the right, oh, gee, shocking. Of course it is. But it's not the government doing this. Cancel culture is not the government. And free speech in this country is here. But I just believe you have to stand up for what you say. And if people call you out, so be it.
Dr. Ziegler.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, I take objection to a lot of what the caller just said there, because first of all, the government is, in this particular situation, facilitating a lot of this. There's so many examples. We don't have time for them. The threatening to take away of visas, the vice president urging people to snitch on their neighbors. We have the Secretary of Transportation putting out social media posts, essentially telling industries that he regulates, the airlines, that people cannot say things negative about Charlie Kirk and not, have repercussions, and they should be firing their employees. There are all sorts of examples where the government has a role here. The military is a perfect example of this. And I also believe that we need, when you take it outside of the realm of the government, Dan, this idea of incredible subjectivity and arbitrariness of when these so-called speech rules are enforced is very, very dangerous. And if someone says something in their public life that is not inciting or specifically threatening violence against somebody, to me, that should not cost them their job. And I don't think Charlie Kirk would have wanted that to happen.
Let's go to Mitchell in New Jersey. Mitchell, how you doing? What's going on?
Hi, Dan. Hi, Mr. Ziegler. I guess I want to talk about the government getting involved with this. I cannot recall, and I absolutely accept as an axiom that both sides are involved with cancel culture. I want to know the nuance and the context before I made a decision whether it was right or wrong. But in this case, though, I can't think of an instance where the left or the liberals have tried to incorporate government as a tool to enforce cancel culture. Can you?
John Ziegler.
Well, I'd like to take that, Dan. I believe that there are several ways in which Democrats and liberals have been facilitating this cancel culture idea via government. The biggest, that people don't talk nearly enough about, is the entire concept of hate crime legislation. I have been saying for decades that hate crime legislation is a direct line to criminalizing so-called hate speech. And once you criminalize hate speech, it's over. Hate crime legislation punishes people criminally through law for their thoughts and their motivations. And I have always believed that that is a violation of the First Amendment. More specifically, if you go to what happened during the COVID panic, there were numerous situations where Democratic governments, and I live in California, I saw this on almost a daily basis, where there was specific cancel culture, whether it was vaccine mandates or other mandates related to the COVID panic, where people were punished and canceled for their opinions about the mandates and the reaction to the COVID panic. That was absolutely, in my opinion, an example of Democrats being hypocritical in that case on the whole issue of my body, my choice, and of freedom of speech. And I think there are other examples, but that's probably the most prominent.
Dave is in Pennsylvania. Dave, how you doing? What's going on?
And the greatest line of all talk radio is, man, I'm concerned for you. I love it. I do. That's all I got. You guys covered everything I was going to say. Great, Dan. Awesome.
I mean, like, what do you want me to say? I mean, like, guy says Charlie Kirk isn't dead. It's like, I'm not going to debate the facts on it. It's just, anyway, that's it, Dave. All right. Thank you. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Pat in Texas. Pat, how you doing? What's going on?
People didn't like it, especially these weak-minded. Hello?
Hey, Pat, how you doing? You're on the air. What do you got?
Hey, I think Ziegler is wrong, and I think you're wrong as well, Abrams. The thing is, the hate speech is a hate crime that was pushed into law about 30 years ago when the left and the LGBTQ went out there and told everybody we need to be soft on our words to that community. Okay? So here's the thing. When they pass it into law and stuff, then guess what? The government did get involved to protect a certain group of people. And guess what? It should be on everybody. It's a discrimination for people to go out there and talk that kind of rhetoric to basically spark up hate or crimes against another person. It is not a First Amendment right for people to go out there and talk this way about having the idea or the thought of killing somebody just because they don't like the person's opinion. And y'all know it's wrong.
Well, hang on. You're conflating what's wrong with what is a constitutional violation. It is wrong, absolutely wrong, for people to make comments that in any way celebrate, denigrate the murder of Charlie Kirk or anyone else. But that doesn't mean it's not their constitutional right to say it. There's just a difference.
Dan Abrams, how is it possible for that to be right and classified as a First Amendment right when someone goes out there and defames somebody's character to the point that a bunch of people who have other views than that man right there will go out there and put a mob squad out on him to try to kill him?
Well, that's what defamation law is about, right? I mean, that's why defamation is actually a carve-out in the First Amendment. It doesn't mean you can say anything without repercussions. If you say something that's false and defamatory against someone, you can get sued over it. That's a carve-out. It's not sort of an absolute right to say whatever you want and have no repercussions. But there are a number of different issues here, right? One is threatening criminal prosecution, which is the worst of this. And the other one is how far we as a society should be going to out people for saying things we find distasteful. That's what cancel culture is about. Ziegler, you got a 30-second final period on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with regard to people misunderstanding the cultural free speech and the First Amendment rights is the issue of subjectivity and the arbitrariness of the enforcement of these ever-changing speech rules. And these rules are changing literally by an hourly and daily basis. And we need to be very, very careful because we are in dangerous territory here, Dan. And I thank you for being one of the very few people in the news media who understands this issue and is willing to speak up about it, because we need more people like you.
John Ziegler, as always, doctor, thank you very much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.